The conference room went silent. Every executive at the table stared at me, waiting for my response to the quarterly projections I'd just presented. I was the chief financial officer of Meridian Industries, a position I'd fought 15 years to earn. I commanded respect in every boardroom I entered. But right now, standing in the hallway outside my corner office, was a girl who was about to shatter everything I'd built. My assistant Rachel had pulled me aside with an urgent whisper. "Ms. Hayes, there's a young woman here. She says she's your husband's daughter. She's very insistent about seeing you." I'd smiled politely at the executives. "Excuse me for just one moment." My heels clicked against the marble floor as I walked toward my office. Daughter. The word echoed in my head like a foreign language. Marcus and I had been married for 15 years. We'd met in college, married right after graduation. He had no previous marriage, no previous relationships that produced children. We'd struggled with infertility for years before finally accepting we'd remain childless. So whose daughter was waiting in my office? I pushed open the glass door. She stood by the window, silhouetted against the afternoon sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She turned when she heard me enter. My breath caught in my throat. She was 17, maybe 18. Long dark hair, sharp cheekbones, and most devastating of all, she had Marcus's eyes. Those distinctive hazel eyes with the amber flecks that had made me fall in love with him 20 years ago. "Mrs. Hayes." Her voice was soft but steady. "My name is Sophie. Sophie Chun. I'm your husband's daughter." I stood frozen in the doorway. My mind was racing through calculations. 17 or 18 years old. Marcus and I got married 15 years ago. We dated for 3 years before that. The math was simple and brutal. "I think there's been a mistake," I said, my voice professionally calm despite the ice spreading through my veins. "My husband doesn't have any children." "Yes, he does." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "He's been sending my mom money every month since I was born. $2,000. Like clockwork." She handed me the paper. It was a bank statement. Monthly transfers from an account I didn't recognize to someone named Lily Chun. 18 years of transfers. $2,000 each month. That was $432,000. "I don't understand," I whispered, but I was starting to. Oh God, I was starting to understand everything. "My mom died last month," Sophie continued. Her eyes were dry, but I could see the grief underneath. "Cancer. Before she died, she told me the truth about my father. She said his name was Marcus Hayes and that he lived in New York. She said she never told him about me, but that's a lie, isn't it?" I couldn't answer. I was staring at the bank statement, at Marcus's name on the account. "He knew," Sophie said, her voice hardening. "He's known about me my whole life. He's been paying my mom to keep quiet, to keep me a secret from you." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of my desk. "Mrs. Hayes, are you okay?" Rachel appeared at my side. "I'm fine." The words came automatically. I was always fine. I'd built my career on being unshakable. "Rachel, please cancel my afternoon meetings. And call Marcus. Tell him I need him to come to my office immediately." Sophie sat in the chair across from my desk, and I sat down too, studying this girl who had just blown my life apart. "Tell me everything," I said quietly. What she told me over the next hour destroyed the foundation of my marriage. Her mother, Lily Chun, had been Marcus's girlfriend in college. They dated for 2 years before I ever met him. When Lily got pregnant, Marcus had panicked. He was young, ambitious, not ready to be a father. He'd offered to pay for an abortion. Lily had refused. They'd broken up. 6 months later, Marcus met me. He'd never mentioned Lily. Never mentioned that somewhere out there, a woman was about to give birth to his child. Sophie was born. Marcus had shown up at the hospital with a lawyer and a contract. He would pay $2,000 a month in child support, but Lily had to agree to never contact him, never reveal his identity, never interfere in his life. If she violated the agreement, the payments would stop immediately. Lily had been 22, alone and terrified. She'd signed. "He never visited me," Sophie said, her voice cracking for the first time. "Not once. Not on my birthday, not on Christmas. The money just showed up every month. I didn't even know his name until my mom told me before she died. She said I deserved to know who my father was. Before I continue, Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I sat there, processing. 18 years. Our entire relationship had been built on a lie. Every time I'd cried about our infertility, every doctor's appointment, every failed treatment, Marcus had known he already had a child. A child he was supporting in secret. Where was this account? I asked, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. I handle all our finances. That's what I wondered too, Sophie said. She pulled out more papers. Mom kept everything. The original contract, copies of every check, every bank statement. Look at the account name. I looked. The account was under the name of Marcus's mother, Patricia Hayes. She died 5 years ago. He used his dead mother's account. I said, my voice hollow. No. He used it while she was alive. Look at the dates. The account was opened 20 years ago. Your mother-in-law knew about me. She was helping him hide me from you. The betrayal went deeper than I'd thought. Patricia Hayes had welcomed me into the family, had hugged me at our wedding, had consoled me through our fertility struggles. All while knowing Marcus had a daughter he was hiding. Does anyone else know? I asked. Sophie shook her head. Mom never told anyone. The contract had a non-disclosure clause. She couldn't even tell her own parents. She raised me alone and told everyone my father had abandoned us. Which I guess is technically true. My office door opened. Marcus walked in, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder, his tie loosened. He was smiling, the way he always smiled when I called him to my office during work hours. He thought this was going to be one of our quick lunch dates. Then he saw Sophie. The color drained from his face. His briefcase slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a thud. What? His eyes darted from Sophie to me, then back to Sophie. What are you doing here? Hello, Dad, Sophie said. The word was poison. Marcus looked at me. His mouth opened and closed. No words came out. I stood up, walked to my office door and locked it. Then I closed the blinds. Whatever was about to happen, I didn't need my entire company watching. Sit down, Marcus, I said quietly. Elena, I can explain. Sit down. He sat. I remained standing, my arms crossed. In this moment, in my office, in my territory, I had the power. And I was going to use every bit of it. How long have you known? I asked. Known what? His voice was weak, the words of a man who knew he was caught but was still going to try to lie his way out. I picked up the bank statements and threw them at him. They scattered across his lap. 18 years of lies in black and white. How long have you known? Marcus's hands shook as he picked up the papers. He didn't look at them. He already knew what they said. Since the beginning, he whispered. Since before you and I met. The admission hung in the air like smoke. I'd expected it, but hearing him say it out loud was different. It made it real. You've been sending money to your daughter for 18 years, I said, my voice eerily calm. $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year. $432,000 total. Money that came from our joint accounts. Money I helped earn. Elena, please. I'm not finished. My voice was sharp as a blade. You used your mother's bank account to hide the transfers. Your mother knew about Sophie. She helped you hide a child from your wife. Who else knows, Marcus? Who else has been laughing at me behind my back? No one is laughing. Who else knows? Marcus flinched. Sophie watched us both, her eyes wide. Victor, Marcus finally said. My brother knows. Victor. His older brother, his business partner in their real estate development company. Victor had been the best man at our wedding. He'd given a toast about how perfect Marcus and I were for each other. Anyone else? I asked, my voice dropping back to that dangerous calm. Marcus hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Who else, Marcus? Diane, he whispered. The room spun. Diane. My best friend. My maid of honor. The woman I'd called crying after every failed IVF treatment. The woman who'd held my hand through the darkest moments of my life. Diane has known the entire time, Marcus said, the words tumbling out now. She's the one who introduced me to Lily. They were roommates in college. When Lily got pregnant, Diane was there. She helped arrange everything. She thought she was helping me, helping us. She knew how much you wanted to build a life together, and she thought if you knew about Sophie, you'd leave me. I laughed. It was a harsh, broken sound. So she helped you lie to me for 15 years. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Marcus? I leaned forward, my hands on the desk. Explain it to me. Make me understand how my husband and my best friend conspired to hide your daughter from me. Help me understand how you let me go through years of fertility treatments, how you watched me cry myself to sleep, knowing the whole time you already had a child. I wanted children with you, Marcus said desperately. Sophie was a mistake, something that happened before I even knew what I wanted. But with you, Elena, I wanted to build a family. You wanted to erase her, Sophie said quietly. Both Marcus and I turned to look at her. Tears were streaming down her face now. You wanted to pretend I didn't exist. You paid my mom to make me disappear. And now that she's dead, you thought I'd just go away too. That's not true, Marcus said, but it sounded hollow even to him. Then why didn't you come to the funeral? Sophie's voice broke. My mom died 3 weeks ago. I know you knew. The lawyer who set up the contract called you. I saw the phone records. You knew she was dead, and you didn't even come to say goodbye. Marcus had no answer for that. I watched him sit there, this man I'd loved for 20 years, and I felt nothing. The love had been real once, I was sure of it. But it had been built on lies, and now that the lies were exposed, there was nothing left but ash. Get out, I said quietly. Elena, please, we need to talk about this. Get out of my office. Go back to your precious company. I'll be home tonight, and we're going to have a much longer conversation. But right now, I need you to leave before I say something I can't take back. Marcus stood up slowly. He looked at Sophie, opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it again. He walked to the door, unlocked it, and left without another word. The silence after he left was deafening. I sat down heavily in my chair. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline starting to wear off. Sophie was still crying quietly across from me. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't want to ruin your life. I just wanted to meet him. I wanted to know why he never wanted to know me. I looked at this girl, this young woman who had done nothing wrong except be born. She'd lost her mother and discovered that her father had been paying to keep her a secret her entire life. If anyone was a victim here, it was her. You didn't ruin my life, Sophie, I said. My voice was gentle now. You exposed the truth. That's different. What are you going to do? She asked. I leaned back in my chair, my mind already working. I'd built a career on analyzing financial data, on finding patterns and discrepancies. I'd always been good at seeing things other people missed. And right now I was seeing a lot. I'm going to find out exactly how deep this betrayal goes, I said. The bank statements you showed me only go back 18 years. But Marcus's mother's account existed before that. I want to know what else he's been hiding. Sophie pulled more papers from her bag. Mom kept everything. Every document, every receipt, every letter. It's all here. I took the stack of papers. It was thick, years of evidence. Thank you, I said. Then I asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you need somewhere to stay? If your mother just passed away. Sophie shook her head. I'm staying with her sister, my aunt. She lives in Queens. But thank you for asking. She stood up to leave, then hesitated. Mrs. Hayes? Do you hate me? I looked at her, really looked at her. She had Marcus's eyes, but there was something else in her face. A strength that reminded me of myself at that age. No, I said honestly. I don't hate you at all. You're a victim in this too. After Sophie left, I sat alone in my office with 18 years of secrets spread across my desk. I should have been crying. I should have been breaking down. But instead, I felt cold, calculating. My CFO brain was taking over, analyzing the situation like it was a hostile takeover. Marcus had hidden a child from me. He'd used his mother's account to funnel money out of our finances. He'd conspired with my best friend to maintain the lie. The question was, what else had he hidden? I picked up my phone and called my assistant. Rachel, clear my schedule for the rest of the week. I'm taking some personal time. Then I called someone I trusted, someone who owed me no loyalty to Marcus. My college roommate, Jennifer, who had become a forensic accountant. Jen, I said when she answered, I need your help, and I need you to be very discreet. What Jennifer found over the next 3 days made the secret daughter look like a minor indiscretion. Patricia Hayes's bank account hadn't just been used for Sophie's child support. It had been a funnel for Marcus to hide money from me for 18 years. Money that should have been part of our marital assets. Money I'd helped earn. But it was worse than that. 3 years ago, my father had died and left me a substantial inheritance. $5 million. Marcus and I had discussed investing it in his real estate company. I'd agreed, trusting him to grow the money we'd eventually use for our retirement. According to the documents Jennifer found, Marcus had invested my entire inheritance into a series of shell companies. Companies that didn't exist anywhere except on paper. The money had been systematically moved from account to account, laundered through fake real estate deals, until it effectively disappeared. Or rather, until it reappeared in Marcus's personal offshore account in the Cayman Islands. An account I knew nothing about. He'd stolen my inheritance. $5 million gone. Hidden in an account under his name alone. There's more, Jennifer said, her voice tight over the phone. The shell companies he used? They were set up by Victor. His brother helped him do this. I sat in my home office, surrounded by printouts and bank statements, feeling the ice in my veins turn to cold fire. Marcus hadn't just hidden a daughter. He'd systematically stolen from me, with the help of his brother, planning what? To leave me? To divorce me and take everything? I looked at the calendar. Our 15th wedding anniversary was in 2 weeks. We'd planned a big party, invited all our friends and family. Diane had volunteered to help plan it. Diane, who'd known about Sophie all along. Diane, who I suddenly realized had been pushing me to invest my inheritance in Marcus's company. She'd been in on it too. A dark thought occurred to me. I opened my laptop and started searching through old emails. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. An email from Diane to Marcus, sent 2 years ago, that had accidentally been CC'd to my work email. I'd never opened it because the subject line had been RE proposal, and I'd assumed it was business-related. I opened it now. Marcus, she's starting to ask questions about the accounts. You need to move faster. After the anniversary party, you can file for divorce, and she won't have time to find the offshore accounts before the asset split. Victor says his lawyer can make sure she only gets half of the visible assets. You'll walk away with at least $7 million. Then we can finally stop hiding. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. Then we can finally stop hiding. I opened another email. Then another. I searched Diane in Marcus's email account, which I'd always had access to because we'd shared passwords for transparency. The transparency had been one way. There were hundreds of emails. Years of them. They'd been having an affair for at least 5 years, maybe longer. The emails were carefully worded, nothing explicitly sexual, but the intimacy was obvious. Plans for lunch meetings that were really hotel visits. Business trips where they'd travel together while I thought Marcus was alone. My best friend and my husband had been having an affair for 5 years. And they were planning to divorce me right after our anniversary party, steal my inheritance, and leave me with nothing. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. The betrayal was so complete, so total, that it almost seemed impossible. But the evidence was right there. Bank statements, emails, offshore accounts, shell companies. They'd built a conspiracy to destroy me, and they'd almost gotten away with it. Almost. I picked up my phone and called Jennifer back. I need you to document everything. Every account, every transfer, every email. I need a complete forensic report that will hold up in court. Already on it, Jennifer said. Elena, this is fraud. This is theft. Marcus and Victor could go to prison for this. Good, I said. My voice was cold. Because that's exactly where they're going. Then I called my lawyer. Not our family lawyer, the one Marcus had chosen. I called the most ruthless divorce attorney in New York, a woman named Catherine Shaw who had a reputation for destroying cheating husbands. Miss Shaw, I said when she answered, my name is Elena Hayes, and I need to hire you for a divorce. I have extensive evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and infidelity. And I want everything. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. Catherine Shaw's office was in a sleek high-rise in Manhattan. Her reputation preceded her. She'd taken down CEOs, politicians, and old money families. Her success rate in divorces was 95%, and in every case, her clients walked away with the lion's share of the assets. She was exactly who I needed. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, gesturing to a leather chair across from her massive desk. "I've reviewed the preliminary documents you sent. This is quite a case. Can you help me?" I asked. Catherine smiled. It was the smile of a shark who just spotted blood in the water. "Help you? Mrs. Hayes, when I'm done with your husband, he'll be lucky to have enough money for a bus ticket." Over the next week, I maintained the perfect facade. I went to work, came home, made dinner, slept in the same bed as Marcus. He thought everything was normal. He thought I didn't know. But every night, after he fell asleep, I went into my home office and worked with Catherine, Jennifer, and a team of investigators they brought in. We documented everything. Every account, every transfer, every hidden asset. We found more than I'd expected. Marcus and Victor's real estate company had been running a scheme for years, inflating property values, using shell companies to buy and sell properties to themselves, and pocketing the difference. They defrauded investors out of millions. "This isn't just a divorce case anymore," Catherine said. "This is a federal crime. We need to bring in the FBI." "Not yet," I said. "I want to wait until after the anniversary party." Catherine looked at me. "You're still having the party?" "Absolutely." I smiled, and it felt cold on my face. Marcus and Diane are planning to humiliate me. They want to celebrate our 15 years together, and then divorce me 2 weeks later, making me look like the fool who never saw it coming. Let them have their party. Let them think they've won. Because what they don't know is that I'm going to blow their entire world apart. The day of the anniversary party arrived. It was being held at an exclusive restaurant Marcus and Victor co-owned. 200 guests, including all of our friends, family, and colleagues. Marcus had spared no expense. He'd even hired a professional photographer and videographer to document the evening. He wanted proof of our perfect marriage before he destroyed it. I got dressed in my bedroom, choosing a red dress. The color of power. The color of blood. Marcus came in as I was putting on my earrings. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing my cheek. I smiled at him in the mirror. "Thank you, darling. Are you excited for tonight?" "Very." He meant it. He was excited to celebrate the marriage he was about to destroy. Victor and Diane worked so hard to make this perfect. "Yes," I said. "Diane has been such a good friend." If he heard the edge in my voice, he didn't show it. We arrived at the restaurant to find it beautifully decorated. White roses everywhere, our wedding photos blown up and displayed on easels, soft music playing. Diane rushed over to hug me, wearing a silver dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Elena, you look stunning." Her smile was bright and false. "So do you," I said, hugging her back. "Thank you so much for organizing all of this." "Anything for you," she said. The lie rolled off her tongue, so easily. The party was everything Marcus had wanted. People gave speeches about our perfect marriage. Victor toasted to 15 more years of happiness. Diane showed a slideshow of photos from our wedding, our vacations, our life together. It was all so perfect. So fake. Halfway through dinner, Marcus stood up to give a speech. He took my hand, pulling me up beside him. 15 years ago, he said to the crowded room, I married the most incredible woman I'd ever met. Elena is brilliant, beautiful, strong, and I'm the luckiest man alive to call her my wife. The crowd applauded. I smiled, squeezing his hand. I can't imagine my life without her, Marcus continued. She's my partner, my best friend, my everything. More applause. I saw Diane in the crowd, her eyes glistening with fake tears. Victor stood beside her, raising his glass. To many more years together, Marcus said, turning to me. Actually, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. I have something I'd like to say too. Marcus looked surprised but pleased. He handed me the microphone. I looked out at the crowd. 200 people, all waiting to hear me profess my love for my husband. Thank you all for coming tonight, I began. It means so much to Marcus and me to have you here celebrating our marriage. A marriage that's been built on trust, honesty, and loyalty. I paused. Marcus was still smiling, oblivious. Or at least, I continued. That's what I thought until 3 weeks ago. The mood in the room shifted. People glanced at each other, confused. 3 weeks ago, a young woman came to my office. Her name is Sophie Chen. She's 18 years old. And she's my husband's daughter. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus's face went white. He reached for the microphone, but I stepped back. Marcus has known about Sophie since before we got married. He's been sending her mother $2,000 a month for 18 years. $432,000 of our money to hide a child from his wife. The room erupted in whispers. I saw people turning to each other, saw my mother-in-law's horrified face, saw Victor trying to get to Marcus. But that's not all, I said, my voice cutting through the noise. 3 years ago, when my father died, he left me $5 million. Marcus convinced me to invest it in his company. Except he didn't invest it. He stole it. He used shell companies to funnel my inheritance into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. I looked directly at Victor now. Shell companies that his brother helped him create. Victor, did you want to explain to everyone how you and Marcus have been running a real estate fraud scheme for the past 6 years? Victor's face went from red to purple. He started pushing through the crowd toward me, but Catherine Shaw appeared from the side of the room, flanked by 2 FBI agents. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mr. Hayes, Catherine said. The agents stepped forward. Marcus Hayes and Victor Hayes, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. The handcuffs came out. Marcus looked at me, his eyes wide with shock and betrayal. Elena, what have you done? What have I done? I laughed. I exposed the truth, Marcus. I did what you were too much of a coward to do. I told the truth. As the agents led Marcus and Victor away, I turned to look at Diane. She was standing frozen, her face pale. Oh, and Diane, I said into the microphone. Thank you so much for helping Marcus plan this party, and for helping him plan our divorce, and for sleeping with my husband for the past 5 years. I pulled out my phone and pressed a button. The large screens that had been showing our wedding photos suddenly changed. Email after email between Diane and Marcus appeared, projected for the entire room to see. Can't wait until this is over and we can finally be together. After the divorce, we can start our real life. Elena has no idea. She's too busy with work to notice anything. The room was silent except for the sound of Diane's sobbing. People were staring at her with disgust. Her husband, a man I'd barely paid attention to all night, stood up and walked out. He didn't even look at her. The FBI will probably want to talk to you too, Diane, I said. Since you helped Marcus set up the shell companies, but I'm sure your legal team will figure something out. I set down the microphone and walked out of the restaurant. Behind me, I could hear chaos erupting. People shouting, crying, demanding explanations. But I didn't care. I was done with all of them. Catherine found me outside, standing in the cool night air. That was quite a performance, she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. They wanted a party, I said. I gave them one they'll never forget. Over the next few months, everything unraveled exactly as Catherine had predicted. Marcus and Victor were formally charged with multiple counts of fraud. The FBI investigation revealed that their scheme had defrauded investors out of over $15 million. They were facing 30 years in prison. Marcus tried to make a deal, offering to testify against Victor in exchange for a reduced sentence. Victor tried to make the same deal, offering to testify against Marcus. In the end, neither of them got the deal they wanted. The divorce was swift and brutal. Catherine didn't just go for half of everything. She went for blood. Because of the fraud, the judge ruled that all of Marcus's assets were marital property that he tried to hide from me. That meant I got the house, the cars, his share of the company, and most importantly, every penny he'd hidden in offshore accounts. My $5 million inheritance came back to me with interest. $7 million in total. I also got the satisfaction of watching Diane's life implode. Her husband filed for divorce immediately. She lost her job when her company learned she'd helped Marcus commit fraud. Her friends abandoned her. The last I heard, she'd moved out of state to live with her parents. Sophie stayed in touch. We had lunch once a month, and slowly, carefully, we built a relationship. She didn't need me to replace her mother, and I didn't try. But I could be someone who cared, someone who showed up. Marcus tried to call me from prison once. I didn't answer. He wrote letters. I burned them without reading them. There was nothing he could say that I wanted to hear. My mother-in-law, Patricia Hayes, had died 5 years before any of this came out. Part of me was glad she wasn't alive to see her sons go to prison. But another part of me was angry that she'd never face consequences for helping Marcus hide his daughter. The company that Marcus and Victor had built together was dissolved. The assets were sold, the investors were repaid what they could be, and I walked away with my share. I donated some of the money to organizations that help single mothers. I set up a trust fund for Sophie, money that would pay for her college and help her start her life. And I kept the rest. I'd earned it. Every penny. A year after the anniversary party from hell, I was sitting in my new apartment, a penthouse with a view of Central Park. I'd sold the house I'd shared with Marcus. Too many ghosts. My phone rang. It was Jennifer. "Have you seen the news?" she asked. "No, what's going on?" "Victor cut a deal. He's testifying against Marcus in exchange for 15 years instead of 30. The trial starts next week." I smiled. "Let them destroy each other." "Are you going to attend?" Jennifer asked. "You'd be allowed in the courtroom." I thought about it. The old Elena, the one who'd been betrayed and humiliated, would have wanted to be there. Would have wanted to watch Marcus face justice. But the new Elena, she had better things to do. "No," I said. "I'm done with that chapter of my life. They can destroy each other without an audience." I hung up and walked to my window. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. My reflection stared back at me from the glass, and I barely recognized the woman I saw. She was stronger, harder, but also freer. I'd lost a husband, a best friend, and 15 years of my life to lies. But I'd gained something more valuable, the truth, and the knowledge that I could survive anything. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Coffee this week? I have big news." I smiled and typed back. "Absolutely. Wednesday." Her response was immediate. "Perfect. See you then." I put my phone down and poured myself a glass of wine. It was expensive, the kind of wine I'd always wanted to try, but Marcus had said was too extravagant. I took a sip and walked back to the window. Somewhere out there, Marcus was sitting in a cell, probably planning his defense, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. Let him wonder. I had a life to rebuild, and this time, I was building it on a foundation of truth. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I didn't attend, but I followed the news coverage. It was exactly as brutal as I'd hoped. Victor testified against Marcus, detailing every scheme, every fraud, every lie. Marcus's defense tried to paint him as a victim of his older brother's manipulation, but the jury didn't buy it. The evidence was overwhelming. The emails, the bank statements, the shell companies, the offshore accounts. Every piece of the conspiracy that I'd helped uncover was presented in court. Marcus took the stand in his own defense. He cried. He apologized. He claimed he'd been under pressure, that he'd made mistakes, that he still loved me. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marcus got 25 years. Victor got 15. By the time they got out, they'd be old men with nothing to their names. Diane was charged as an accessory. She pleaded guilty and got 5 years probation and a heavy fine. Her law license was revoked. The last I heard, she was working as a paralegal in some small town in Ohio. The news media called it the biggest financial fraud case in New York in a decade. They called me the whistleblower wife and the betrayed executive who brought down an empire. I didn't give any interviews. I didn't want to be famous for being betrayed. I wanted to move on. 6 months after the trial ended, I was promoted to CEO of my company. The board had been impressed by my handling of the situation, by my ability to keep working even while my personal life imploded. At the press conference announcing my promotion, someone asked me about Marcus. "Do you have any regrets?" the reporter asked. "Do you wish you'd handled things differently?" I thought about it. Did I regret the public humiliation? The dramatic revelation at the anniversary party? No, I said simply. I have no regrets. I did what I had to do to protect myself and get justice. Would I have preferred if my husband had been honest with me from the start? Of course. But he wasn't. And when I found out the truth, I didn't hide from it. I faced it head on. "What about Sophie?" another reporter asked. "Your husband's daughter. Do you have a relationship with her?" Sophie is a wonderful young woman who was a victim of her father's selfishness, I said. Yes, we have a relationship. She's starting college this fall, and I'm very proud of her. That night, Sophie called me. I saw the press conference. Thank you for what you said. I meant every word. My dad wrote me another letter, she said quietly. From prison. He wants me to visit him. Are you going too? I asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to tell him everything I've been holding in for 18 years. But another part thinks he doesn't deserve my time. That's your choice to make, I said. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. Will you ever forgive him? Sophie asked. I thought about that. Forgiveness. It was something people had been asking me about for months. No, I said honestly. I won't forgive him. Forgiveness implies that what he did was forgivable, and it wasn't. He betrayed me in every way possible. He stole from me, lied to me, plotted against me. He didn't just cheat on me with my best friend. He built an entire conspiracy to destroy me financially and emotionally. Then how do you move on? Sophie asked. If you can't forgive, I don't need to forgive him to move on, I said. I just need to accept that it happened, take the lessons I learned, and build a better life. Forgiveness is for him, not for me. And I don't owe him anything. Not anymore. 2 years after the anniversary party, I was living a life I'd never imagined. CEO of a Fortune 500 company, financially independent, and genuinely happy. I'd started dating again, casually. Nothing serious. I wasn't ready to trust someone completely yet, and maybe I never would be. But I was open to the possibility. Sophie graduated from Columbia with honors. I attended her graduation, sitting in the crowd with her aunt and her late mother's friends. When Sophie walked across the stage, she looked up at us and smiled. A real, genuine smile. After the ceremony, she hugged me. Thank you for being here. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Did you ever think, Sophie said, when I showed up at your office that day that we'd end up here? I laughed. Honestly, no. I thought my life was ending that day. Instead, it was just beginning. Marcus sent me one final letter. It arrived on what would have been our 17th wedding anniversary. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single page, written in his familiar handwriting. Elena, I know you'll probably never read this, but I have to try. I've had 2 years to think about what I did to you, and I know now that there's no excuse. I was selfish, cowardly, and cruel. I told myself I was protecting you by hiding Sophie, but I was really protecting myself. I told myself I was building a future for us by taking your inheritance, but I was really stealing from you. And I told myself I loved you while sleeping with your best friend. The truth is, I didn't deserve you. I never did. You were always too good for me, too strong, too brilliant. And instead of trying to be worthy of you, I try to drag you down to my level. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what I lost. I understand what I destroyed. You won, Elena. You exposed everything, and you came out stronger. I'm in prison, my brother won't speak to me, and I've lost everything that mattered. But you're thriving, and that's exactly what you deserve. I hope you're happy. I hope you find someone who treats you the way I should have. And I hope that someday, when Sophie asks you about me, you'll tell her that despite everything, her father wasn't completely irredeemable. That at the end, he finally understood what he'd done. Goodbye, Elena. Marcus. I read the letter twice, then put it in a drawer. It wasn't an apology, not really. It was an acknowledgement. And maybe that was all I would ever get. Did it change anything? No. Did it make the betrayal hurt less? Not at all. But it was closure. The final period at the end of a very long, very painful sentence. I stood up and walked to my window. The city sparkled below me, full of life and possibility. Somewhere out there, Marcus was in a cell, probably regretting every choice that had led him there. Diane was working a dead-end job, shunned by everyone who'd once called her friend. Victor was in a different prison, probably blaming Marcus for everything. And me, I was here, in my penthouse, running a company, mentoring the daughter my husband had tried to hide, and living the life I'd built from the ashes of my marriage. They tried to destroy me. They conspired, lied, and stolen. They'd thought I was too naive, too trusting, too weak to fight back. They were wrong. I'd fought back and I'd won. Not just in court, not just financially, but in every way that mattered. I'd taken their worst betrayal and turned it into my greatest triumph. My phone rang. It was Sophie. "Hey," she said. "I'm in the neighborhood. Wanna grab dinner?" I smiled. "I'd love that. Meet me at the Italian place on 5th. See you in 20. I hung up, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. My new life was waiting, and I wasn't going to waste another second looking back at the old one. Marcus had said I won. He was right, and I intended to keep winning. But as I walked toward the elevator, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Elena Hayes." A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "Speaking. My name is Detective Sarah Morrison with the NYPD Financial Crimes Unit. I'm calling about your ex-husband, Marcus Hayes. Do you have a moment?" I felt my stomach tighten. Marcus had been in prison for 2 years. What could they possibly want now? "Of course. What's this about?" "We've been investigating some irregularities that came up during a routine audit of the Hayes real estate case files. There are some financial transactions that don't match the evidence presented at trial. Would you be able to come to the station tomorrow morning? We'd like to go through some documents with you." Irregularities. My CFO instincts immediately went on alert. "What kind of irregularities?" I asked. "I'd rather discuss it in person if you don't mind. It's complicated, and we want to make sure we have all the facts straight before we proceed." I agreed to meet her the next morning and hung up. The joy I'd felt moments earlier had been replaced by a familiar knot of anxiety. What now? What else had Marcus hidden? I met Sophie for dinner, but I was distracted. She noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting down her fork. I told her about the detective's call. Sophie's face went pale. "Do you think there's more?" she asked quietly. "More money he stole. More lies." "I don't know," I said, "but I'm going to find out." The next morning, I arrived at the police station at exactly 9 a.m. Detective Morrison was waiting for me, along with a man she introduced as Agent David Chun from the FBI. "Mrs. Hayes, thank you for coming," Detective Morrison said, leading me into a conference room. The table was covered with file boxes and stacks of documents. "Please, call me Elena. I'm not Mrs. Hayes anymore." "Elena, then." She gestured for me to sit. "What we're about to show you is part of an ongoing investigation, so we need you to keep this confidential." "Of course." Agent Chin opened one of the file boxes and pulled out a thick folder. "During the trial, you provided evidence that Marcus and Victor Hayes had stolen approximately $15 million through their real estate fraud scheme. Is that correct?" "Yes. That's what the forensic accounting showed." "Right. And the jury convicted them based on that evidence. But here's where it gets interesting." He spread several documents across the table. "We've been cross-referencing bank records from the shell companies with property records, and we found something that doesn't add up." He pointed to a series of transactions. "These transfers here? They total about $8 million. They were moved through the shell companies, just like the other fraudulent transfers. But they didn't go to Marcus and Victor's offshore accounts. They went somewhere else." I leaned forward, studying the documents. The transactions were dated over a 3-year period, always in large chunks, never in a pattern that would trigger automatic bank alerts. "Where did they go?" I asked. Detective Morrison pulled out another document. "That's the $1 million question. Or, rather, the $8 million question. The money was transferred to a holding company called Meridian Trust Holdings. Does that name mean anything to you?" "Meridian. My company was Meridian Industries. Was that a coincidence?" "My company has a similar name, but I've never heard of Meridian Trust Holdings." "We hadn't either," Agent Chin said. "It took us 6 months to track down who actually owns it. The company was registered in Delaware, which allows for anonymous ownership, but we eventually traced it through a series of intermediaries." He paused, and something in his expression made my blood run cold. "Elena, Meridian Trust Holdings is owned by your mother-in-law's estate. Patricia Hayes." I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. Patricia had died 5 years ago. Before that, she'd helped Marcus hide his payments to Sophie's mother. She'd been complicit in his lies from the beginning. My mother-in-law has been dead for 5 years, I said slowly. How could she be stealing money? She wasn't, Detective Morrison said. But someone with access to her estate accounts was. The transfer started about 6 months after her death and continued until Marcus's arrest. Someone was using her estate as a front to siphon money from the fraud scheme. Who controls her estate? Agent Chen asked. I thought back. Patricia's will had been straightforward. Everything was split between her 2 sons, Marcus and Victor. There had been an executor, but I couldn't remember who. There was an estate lawyer, I said. Someone Patricia had used for years. I met him once at the funeral, but I can't remember his name. Detective Morrison slid a photo across the table. Is this him? I looked at the photo and felt my blood turn to ice. It was Gregory Walsh, Marcus's longtime business attorney. The man who'd helped set up his and Victor's real estate company. The man who'd been at our wedding, at countless dinner parties, at our anniversary celebration 2 years ago. Yes, I whispered. That's him, Gregory Walsh. He's been Marcus's lawyer for almost 20 years. Not just his lawyer, Agent Chen said grimly. According to the documents we found, Walsh was a silent partner in several of Marcus and Victor's deals. He helped structure the shell companies. And after Patricia Hayes died, he was named executor of her estate, which gave him complete control over her accounts. I was starting to understand. He used Patricia's estate to steal from Marcus and Victor's fraud scheme. Exactly, Detective Morrison said. Marcus and Victor were stealing from investors, but Walsh was stealing from them. He skimmed $8 million over 3 years, and neither of them knew about it. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Agent Chen and Detective Morrison exchanged a glance. Because, Agent Chen said carefully, some of that money ended up in an account with your name on it. The room spun. What? He pulled out another document. $2 million was transferred from Meridian Trust Holdings into an investment account at Sterling Financial. The account is in your name. Did you open this account? I stared at the document. It had my name, my social security number, my signature. But I'd never seen it before in my life. No, I said firmly. I've never heard of Sterling Financial. I didn't open this account, and I certainly didn't deposit $2 million into it. We believe you, Detective Morrison said quickly. We think Walsh opened the account using forged documents. He's been doing this for years, apparently. We found at least a dozen fake accounts in various people's names. But why would he put money in an account with my name? I asked. Insurance, Agent Chen said. If Marcus or Victor ever discovered the missing money, Walsh could point to this account and claim you were the one stealing from them. You were the whistleblower who exposed their fraud. It would be easy to make a jury believe you'd been skimming money before you turned them in. I felt sick. Even in prison, even after everything, I was still being used as a pawn in someone else's scheme. What happens now? I asked. We need your help, Detective Morrison said. Walsh doesn't know we found this. We want to set up a sting operation. We need him to think the account is still active and that you're trying to access the money. You want me to be bait? I said. We want to catch him, Agent Chen corrected. He's been operating in the shadows for decades, stealing from clients, forging documents, setting up innocent people to take the fall. Your ex-husband and his brother are in prison for their crimes. But Walsh, he's walked away clean every time. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no. I'd spent 2 years rebuilding my life, putting the betrayal and pain behind me. Did I really want to get dragged back into this world of fraud and deception? But then I thought about Patricia Hayes, who died never knowing her own attorney was stealing from her estate. I thought about the other victims Walsh had probably destroyed over the years. And I thought about how he'd tried to frame me, to make me look like a thief. What do you need me to do? I asked. The plan was simple but risky. I would contact Walsh, claiming I discovered the account at Sterling Financial and asking him to help me understand where the money came from. If he took the bait, he'd have to either admit his involvement or try to cover it up. Either way, the FBI would have him on tape. He'll be suspicious, Agent Chen warned. You exposed your husband. Why would you go to his lawyer for help? Because I'm confused and scared, I said. I'll tell him I found this account during a routine financial review, and I'm terrified it's going to be traced back to me. I'll say I need his legal advice on how to handle it. Detective Morrison nodded. That could work. He might see it as an opportunity to pin the theft on you officially. If he thinks you're scared and vulnerable, he might make a mistake. We rehearsed my story, set up recording equipment, and prepared for the meeting. I called Walsh's office from the police station, using a burner phone. Walsh and Associates, a receptionist answered. Hi, this is Elena Hayes. I need to schedule an urgent meeting with Mr. Walsh. It's regarding some financial documents I've discovered. There was a pause. I'm sorry, Miss Hayes, but Mr. Walsh no longer represents you or your former husband. I'm not sure he can. It's not about Marcus. I cut in, letting a note of panic enter my voice. It's about me. I found something, and I don't know who else to turn to. Please. It's urgent. Another pause. Then, hold please. A moment later, Gregory Walsh's smooth voice came on the line. Elena, this is unexpected. What's this about? I can't discuss it over the phone, I said. Can we meet? Today if possible. He hesitated, and I could practically hear him calculating. I have time at 4 p.m. Come to my office. Thank you, I said and hung up. Agent Chin looked impressed. Nice work. He took the bait. Now comes the hard part, I said. At 3:55 p.m., I walked into Walsh and Associates. The office was exactly as I remembered. Expensive furniture, original artwork, the quiet hum of wealth and power. Gregory Walsh met me in the lobby personally. Elena, he said, extending his hand. It's been a while. I shook his hand, noting how firm his grip was. Confident. In control. He thought he was the one calling the shots. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice, I said. He led me into his private office and closed the door. I was wearing a wire, and I knew Agent Chin and his team were listening from a van parked outside. This had to work. So, Walsh said, settling into his leather chair. What's this urgent matter you needed to discuss? I pulled out a folder containing copies of the sterling financial documents the FBI had given me. I received this in the mail a few days ago. A statement from an investment account I've never seen before. But it has my name on it, and there's $2 million in it. I watched his face carefully. For just a moment, I saw a flicker of something. Surprise? Fear. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by professional concern. May I see it? He asked. I handed him the documents. He studied them, his expression neutral. This is interesting, he said finally. Sterling Financial is a legitimate firm, and these documents look authentic. But you're saying you didn't open this account. I've never even heard of Sterling Financial, I said. Greg, I'm terrified. With everything that happened with Marcus, if someone finds out there's an account with my name containing $2 million of unexplained money, what are people going to think? They're going to think you were part of Marcus's scheme, Walsh said quietly. That you helped steal the money before turning him in. Exactly, I said, leaning forward. But I didn't. I swear I didn't. I need to know where this money came from and how my name got on this account. Walsh set down the documents. Elena, I want to help you. But I have to ask, are you absolutely certain you had nothing to do with this? I'm completely certain, I said firmly. Greg, you've known me for years. Do you really think I'd steal money and then expose Marcus? That doesn't make any sense. No, he agreed. It doesn't. He paused, and I could see him weighing his options. Let me look into this. Give me a few days to trace the account's history. I have contacts at Sterling Financial who might be able to tell us how it was opened. Will they see that I'm asking questions? I asked, letting worry creep into my voice. I don't want to alert anyone that I've found this. Don't worry, Walsh said smoothly. I'll be discreet. In the meantime, don't touch that account. Don't transfer money. Don't close it. Don't do anything that might look suspicious. I nodded. Okay. Thank you, Greg. I didn't know who else to turn to. That's what I'm here for, he said, standing up. I'll call you in a few days. As I walked out of his office, I felt my heart pounding. He'd been so calm, so professional. Had he suspected I was wearing a wire? Had the sting worked? I got into my car and drove 2 blocks before pulling over. Agent Chin slid into the passenger seat from where he'd been waiting. Did you get it? I asked. He was grinning. We got everything. The moment you left his office, he made 3 phone calls. 1 to Sterling Financial, one to a number in the Cayman Islands, and one to a burner phone we haven't identified yet. We're tracing all of them now. What did he say? On the Sterling Financial call, he used a code name and asked them to freeze your account and prepare to transfer the funds. On the Cayman call, he told someone named Marcus to initiate Protocol 7. And on the burner, he said, and I quote, "The Hayes woman found the account. We need to move everything now." I felt a chill. Marcus? He called someone named Marcus in the Cayman Islands. Agent Chin nodded grimly. We think Walsh has a partner. Someone who's been helping him operate the offshore accounts. We're tracking that call now. What happens next? I asked. Now we wait. Walsh is going to try to move that money and cover his tracks. When he does, we'll have him for wire fraud, money laundering, and a dozen other charges. You did great, Elena. I drove home in a daze. 2 years ago, I thought the nightmare was over. I'd exposed Marcus's fraud, gotten justice, and moved on. But apparently, the betrayal went even deeper than I'd known. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Walsh, about how he'd sat across from me at dinner parties, how he'd given a speech at my wedding, how he'd consoled me after Patricia's death. All while stealing millions and planning to frame me if he got caught. The next morning, Agent Chin called. We've got him. Walsh tried to transfer the $2 million from the Sterling account to an offshore shell company last night. We intercepted the transfer and obtained a warrant for his arrest. NYPD picked him up an hour ago. What about his partner? I asked. The person he called in the Cayman Islands? That's where it gets interesting, Agent Chin said. We traced the call to a resort in Grand Cayman. The phone was registered to a man named Martin Cross. Does that name mean anything to you? No, I said. Who is he? We're still investigating, but we think Martin Cross is an alias. We're working with Cayman authorities to identify him. But Elena, there's something else you should know. When we arrested Walsh, we found something in his office safe. Letters. Hundreds of them. Letters to who? To Patricia Hayes. From Marcus. They date back almost 20 years. I felt my stomach drop. What were they about? That's the thing. They weren't from your ex-husband Marcus Hayes. They were from someone else. Someone who signed his letters. Your loving son, Marcus. The room spun. Patricia Hayes had another son named Marcus. We think so. We're pulling her medical records now, but if we're right, Patricia Hayes had a child before she married Marcus and Victor's father. A child she gave up for adoption. And that child tracked her down years later. I sat down heavily. Gregory Walsh. We think Walsh might be Patricia Hayes' biological son. He changed his name, became a lawyer, and then systematically positioned himself to steal from the family that gave him up. It would explain why he had such easy access to her estate, why she trusted him completely. And Martin Cross? I asked. Probably another alias, possibly another family member we don't know about yet. But we'll find him. Over the next few weeks, the investigation exploded into something much bigger than anyone had anticipated. Gregory Walsh, under interrogation, finally broke down and confessed everything. He was indeed Patricia Hayes' biological son, born when she was 16 and given up for adoption. He'd spent his life in the foster system, bitter and angry at the family that had abandoned him. When he turned 18, he tracked down Patricia and discovered she'd gone on to have a comfortable life with 2 other sons who got everything he'd been denied. So he'd plotted his revenge. He'd gone to law school, changed his name, and slowly worked his way into the Hayes family's inner circle. He'd become their trusted attorney, their confidant, their advisor. And then he'd started stealing. First from Patricia's accounts, small amounts she never noticed. Then from Marcus and Victor's real estate company, skimming money from their fraudulent deals. He'd been doing it for over 15 years, accumulating millions, while watching the family that had abandoned him destroy itself from within. I didn't even have to do anything, Walsh told the FBI during his confession. Marcus destroyed his marriage with his own lies. Victor helped him commit fraud. They did all the work. I just had to sit back and collect the money they were too stupid to notice was missing. As for Martin Cross, he turned out to be Walsh's half-brother, another child Patricia had given up for adoption years before Walsh was born. Together, they built an entire network of offshore accounts and shell companies designed to drain the Hayes family fortune. The trial was even more sensational than Marcus and Victor's had been. The media called it the revenge of the forgotten sons. The courtroom was packed every day with reporters, true crime enthusiasts, and people who couldn't believe the layers of betrayal. I testified, explaining how Walsh had tried to frame me with the sterling financial account. Sophie testified too, talking about how her grandmother Patricia had helped her father hide her existence, never knowing her own biological son was watching and stealing from them all. In the end, Walsh and Cross were both convicted. Walsh got 35 years. Cross got 25. Every penny they'd stolen was recovered and returned to the rightful owners, including the investors Marcus and Victor had defrauded. The money from the sterling financial account, the $2 million Walsh had tried to use to frame me, was given to me as compensation for the trauma of being targeted. I donated half of it to organizations that supported adopted children in foster families. The other half went into Sophie's trust fund. 3 years after that anniversary party, I finally felt like I could breathe. Marcus was still in prison and would be for decades. Victor had developed severe health problems and was serving his sentence in a medical facility. Diane had disappeared entirely, last heard living somewhere in the Pacific Northwest under a different name. Walsh and Cross were in federal prison, their revenge scheme having ultimately destroyed them instead of their targets. And me! I was thriving. Meridian Industries had become one of the most successful companies in our sector. I'd been featured on the cover of Fortune magazine with the headline, "The CFO who exposed a multi-million-dollar conspiracy." But more importantly, I was happy. Not the naive happiness I'd had during my marriage to Marcus, built on lies and false promises. Real happiness, built on truth and hard-won wisdom. Sophie graduated from Columbia and took a job at a nonprofit that helped children of incarcerated parents. She visited Marcus once in prison, not to reconcile, but to tell him exactly what she thought of him. She came back lighter, freer, finally able to close that chapter of her life. "I don't need him anymore," she told me over coffee afterward. "I have you, my aunt, my mom's memory. I have people who actually show up for me. He was just a man who sent money and thought that was enough." I squeezed her hand. "You deserve so much more than that." "I know," she said, "and I'm going to make sure other kids in my situation know they deserve more too." On what would have been my 20th wedding anniversary, I threw a party. Not to celebrate the marriage, but to celebrate my freedom from it. I invited my real friends, the people who'd stood by me through everything. Jennifer, my forensic accountant friend who'd helped uncover the fraud. Catherine Shaw, my divorce attorney who destroyed Marcus in court. Detective Morrison and Agent Chen, who'd helped catch Walsh and Cross. And Sophie, who'd become more like a daughter than a stepdaughter. We gathered in my penthouse, drinking champagne and laughing. At one point, Jennifer raised her glass. "To Elena," she said, "the woman who turned the biggest betrayal of her life into the greatest victory." "To Elena," everyone echoed. I stood up, looking at the faces around me. These were my people. This was my real family. "Thank you all," I said. 3 years ago, a teenager showed up in my office and told me my husband had a secret daughter. In that moment, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything. I paused, feeling emotion rise in my throat. But I was wrong. I hadn't lost everything. I just lost the lies. And once those were gone, I could finally see the truth. The truth about Marcus, about Diane, about Walsh. And the truth about myself. "What truth is that?" Sophie asked. I smiled. "That I'm stronger than I ever knew. That I can survive anything. And that I don't need to forgive the people who betrayed me in order to move forward. I just need to accept what happened, learn from it, and build something better." "To truth," Catherine said, raising her glass again. "To truth," we all said together. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I stood at my window looking out at the city. My phone buzzed with a notification. An email from the prison system. Marcus had sent another message. I deleted it without reading it. I'd stopped reading his messages a year ago. Whatever he had to say, whatever apologies or explanations or justifications he'd come up with, I didn't need to hear them. His voice didn't matter to me anymore. I opened my laptop and looked at my calendar. Tomorrow I had a board meeting. Next week I was giving a keynote speech at a Women in Business conference. The week after that, Sophie and I were taking a trip to Italy, just the two of us. My life was full. My life was meaningful. My life was mine. The girl who'd shown up in my office 3 years ago hadn't ruined my life. She'd saved it. She'd exposed the truth that set me free. And now, standing in my penthouse, CEO of my own company, surrounded by people who truly cared about me, I could finally say with complete honesty, I was grateful for the betrayal. Not because it was easy or because it didn't hurt, but because it forced me to become someone stronger. Someone who couldn't be deceived, couldn't be manipulated, couldn't be destroyed. Marcus had tried to erase his daughter. He tried to steal my inheritance. He conspired with my best friend to divorce me and leave me with nothing. But in trying to destroy me, he'd actually created something he never could have imagined, a version of me that was unstoppable. I picked up my phone and texted Sophie. Thank you for coming into my office that day. Thank you for telling me the truth. Her response came immediately. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for not hating me. Thank you for becoming my family. I smiled, set down my phone, and walked back to the window. Somewhere out there, Marcus was in a cell, probably thinking about everything he'd lost. Diane was hiding from her past. Walsh and Cross were paying for their crimes. And me, I was right here, exactly where I was supposed to be, living my truth, owning my story, winning my life. The betrayal had been real. The pain had been real. The devastation had been real. But so was my victory. And it was sweeter than anything I'd ever imagined. I raised my champagne glass to my reflection in the window, to the woman looking back at me. She was scarred but unbroken, betrayed but undefeated, deceived but not destroyed. To us, I whispered. To survival. To truth. To freedom. And then I drank, celebrating not the marriage that had ended, but the life that had begun when the lies finally died. I'd spent 15 years as Marcus Hayes' wife, living a lie I didn't know existed. Now I'd spend the rest of my life as Elena Hayes, living in truth. And that was worth celebrating. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story.